This is just going to be a quick little video on martial art, because I think more often than not it's sort of misunderstood, especially in the West. It's something just to channel energy and get inner peace, but it has been used for fighting a hell of a lot. After all, it is a martial art. I've talked before about how Shaolin monks were used to fight Japanese pirates, but in this video I'm going to talk how in the 20th century martial arts schools were set up to do some pretty nasty things. Just before World War II, China was divided into all sorts of states and competing factions, and they were all fighting for power. And they issued their soldiers dadows. Now these were not swords, but essentially big knives, similar to machetes, but not exactly. Now, there's a lot of speculation about where these came from, because there's no mention of them in older texts, so they could just be an enlarged agricultural tool or a modified pole weapon. But they were issued to sort of show people who was in charge. After all, there's a long history behind people with swords having power in China. So they could have just emulated old images, but did a pretty bad job at it. Now the governments, all of them really, like the communists, the nationalists, set up martial arts schools and trained a hell of a lot of people in how to use the Dao, even women, which is strange from China. Now they weren't stupid, they knew they weren't effective against tanks, although sometimes they did come against modern weapons, but they were still crucial during the war. During this time period, it was harder to hold on to a region than to take it, so people with the Dao weren't necessarily on the front line, although as I said there are a lot of examples of people with Daos on the front line. But they were given to military police, who would follow the army after a region had been taken, and they would patrol in groups of about 5 to 6, and one of them would be an executioner, trained in martial arts, and they would publicly execute people for anything, really. So from around the 20s to 40s, martial arts and this sword were a powerful sign of repression and power.